Welcome. You're listening to How I Did That, a storytelling podcast. Let's jump into today's episode.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Nia. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you very much.
So this is really cool. You're all the way in Paris and I'm here and we're able to connect. First, can you introduce yourself to the audience, a little bit about your background? What do you do?
I'm Jeff Stamp. I'm working for Vegan on the Map. We do marketing and travel. Put them both together, we get Digital Nomad. We're actually working with entrepreneurs, creative souls, anybody who is animal lovers, climate action, diversity, social change, making a difference, being kind. Any nice type of people are welcome to come along. Especially the younger people that have grown up with social media. So many people have like some type of activity, a side hustle or a hobby or something, or a business, which is maybe not enough to really be a full-time. Our objective is to create vegan business camp where we turn dreams into a sustainable lifestyle. To go from a few thousand followers to 10,000, you become a micro influencer. And then working in pods, if you have 10 people or with 10,000, pow, suddenly you have a reach of 100,000. And all the sponsors start coming in and you start getting some cash and you start saying, wow, you know what? It's not that much, but it's not too bad. I've got a little bit of money here. And then the next step is what we say to people is, can you work remotely? If you're working online, which is what these people are doing, the next step is to say, can you work remotely? If the answer is yes, next question is, can you work very remotely? Like in a corner of paradise, on a sandy beach, on the other side of the world, where the cost of living is 4 times less than in places like, Canada, America, Europe. We go to the digital nomad hubs, which have 2 things. They have super fast internet and low cost of living. So basically what is not really feasible, maybe in Canada, all of a sudden becomes, yeah, you know what, the $10,000 a year, I'm living like a king in Thailand. Or the other way of looking at it is that, well, yeah, I can work half as long and spend the other time at the beach. So this is what we're doing. That's basically the 2 things we're bringing together, is the entrepreneurship, which is really targeting those kind fields, and then we're doing it whilst traveling.
Why did you become vegan in the first place? Because this Vegan on the Map kind of started, because you were vegan, right? So then how did that happen?
Yeah, sure. The thing is, I stopped eating meat 45 years ago, which was when people didn't even understand the concept. When I said to people, I'm vegetarian at the time, people would say, well, what do you mean? What is that? I've never heard of it before. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, I would say, well, I'm against factory farming in particular because it's inhumane. And the funny thing was, almost everybody said, oh, I agree. There was never any resistance. It's just that they chose, because it was easier to carry on eating meat. And as opposed to today, where I think there's more friction and there is this more confrontational approach to things, where people feel more threatened now. Mm-hmm. Whereas 45 years ago, nobody felt threatened by me at all, So that's what hit it for me was factory farming, mm-hmm. as opposed to anything else, which I just thought is inhumane and no purpose to it, because you're just doing it to save a little bit of money, and the fact it was hidden behind closed doors. So all of the things were the motivators for me switching to a plant-based diet 45 years ago.
So before you went plant-based, were you not vegetarian at all, or did you eat meat?
I was 16 when I'm 61 now. I was 16 when I became a vegetarian, and I was living in the UK. I came from a family which was not exactly rich, Of course, nobody had that much money, and there was nowhere near as much meat consumed back 40 years ago, because quite simply, most people couldn't afford it. We used to eat the Sunday roast. It was once a week you would eat meat, and during the week we'd have maybe fish fingers or something like this, or some pork, sausage or something. But we ate very little meat, so it wasn't a really, it's very different to today. So yeah, I learned about this idea of stopping to eat meat, and I stopped eating meat. I did eat meat from the age of 0 to the age of 16. At the age of 16, I went to see my mummy, and I said, I'm not eating meat anymore. And she said to me, she thought about it for a while. She said, what's going on? And she said, okay, well, you're going to die. Yeah, so that was the thought in those days. Because the other thing which, those days, the science wasn't really in. There had been some long-term tests, mainly with the Seventh-day Adventists, which had done a control group with like 40,000 people over quite a few years. But the conclusions were always very suspect, because it's a very particular type of group. It's not a cross-section of society. So it's really hard to draw conclusions, because they have so many other lifestyle differences. They had their religion and their calm lifestyle and their generally middle class. And, there was lots of reasons. Well, no, it's because of those reasons. And the consensus was that you would live considerably less long. And I said, well, I'm doing it anyway. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, today, the evidence is totally, overwhelming, whereby the average age is something like 8 years extra life. So when people sort of are hesitating today or saying to me, oh, it's a difficult decision, I'm thinking, well, what is difficult about the decision? What is difficult about wanting to live 8 years longer? Now, of course, the main thing isn't about living 8 years longer. The main thing is having good health. Good health, you cannot put a price on it. And especially when you come to my age, I'm kind of in my 60s now. And now is when you start thinking, oh my gosh, I really should have been looking after, when you're 20 or 30 even, you're thinking, I'm indestructible, I am indestructible, I will live forever. The whole concept of, old age is not at all there. But the main thing is not just living longer, but it's a case of living younger, longer. That's nowadays, there's, when you say, why would you make this decision? Nowadays, there's why would you not make the decision? That's the mystery. I mean, that is the mystery. And I know the answer. You can ask me why.
In the past, you said that meat was, people were not as confrontational about it, right? And that you only really had it once a week because people couldn't really afford it.
Well, I think the reason people are confrontational is because of brainwashing. This is my firm belief, is because this makes no sense whatsoever. And it's really because of conditioning from birth, where you are bombarded with, advertising from Coca-Cola and it's just 90% of all decisions are made at a subconscious level. Most decisions, you don't know why you're making the decision. So when you hear a little jingle, ba 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 ba, boom boom, it's like, oh yeah, and you immediately think and you see the happy smiling faces in the commercial that you've seen, and you kind of are drawn towards consuming that product with no real understanding of why or questioning why. So what I say to people is, hey, snap out of it, wake up, smell the coffee, question everything you've ever been told or thought or brainwashed into believing, and start thinking, question even the basic fundamental things like, is meat a nice, caring thing to do? Does it even taste good? It only tastes good because, there is a feedback loop that the brain has. The brain eats something, you don't get ill, so then the brain says, yeah, that was good. And the next time you'll eat a bit more. But it's a feedback loop. Once you start telling your brain starts telling you, no, that's not good. That's actually horrible. And for myself, the whole idea of eating meat is like, I'd rather, it's disgusting. I find it, but that's because I've, in my feedback loop, which is why, again, these new vegans, they say, oh yeah, which are they're transitioning, so fair enough. Mm-hmm. But what goes against me is that I get all these restaurants saying, oh yeah, we've got this fake meat, which we can want things like taste like meat. And I think, I don't want to taste meat. Why would I want to eat something which tastes like a dead animal? In my brain, I just do not want that taste at all, or that texture or anything. It's like a complete negative. That's just me, because I've been conditioned myself for the last sort of 40 years to think that way. But yeah.
Oh, I see what you mean, but I also see the other side where I think people attach the taste like meat, so people who aren't even vegan or vegetarian can kind of transition over.
The whole garbage junk food mentality just is an anathema to me. Mm-hmm. Why does it taste good? It's because you've been conditioned out of the jingles and the thing to say, oh yeah, you know what, eating a burger which has no taste, has got all these sauces and whatever, yeah, that tastes good, because you've been told, take a step back and think, is this really something which tastes good, a burger? You could say it's quick, it's convenient, you like it because you're a baby, you don't like to chew your food, or all sorts of reasons might justify why a burger you think is great and good. Personally, I went down to a burger restaurant the other day. It was one of the most disgusting meals I've had in a long time. It was all these sauces, and it was really horrible. Really horrible. Also, I'm not a big fan of, home cooking as well is so great.
Yeah.
What I say to people is the first thing you should do is learn to cook. And once you get some practice, you get to know what you're doing. You get to know how to sharpen your knife and chop the onions, and this, you become very proficient. So it takes less time to cook than it does to defrost something out of the freezer. Because the other thing people say, oh yeah, I go down to the freezer shop. I never eat frozen food. Never. Because it tastes disgusting. It just has no flavor. Why wouldn't you cook at home? That's what I say to people. Get the quality vegetables, the sauces, the techniques, and then you will be living like a king. Every meal will be so delicious. And when you go down to that burger bar and eat this garbage, you will say, oh my God, I remember those days when I used to think this was good. And now home cooking is just the best. The eating out is nice because it's convivial. You go and meet your friends and you're in that kind of atmosphere. And sometimes just to relax and not have to cook, you think, obviously I'm not saying don't eat out.
Yeah.
But what I am more saying is eat out, in a nice restaurant. Don't go and eat down and if you're rushed for time, you're at work, you just want to go get a sandwich and a burger or whatever. Well, I'm not saying don't do it. What I'm saying is don't tell me that it's great. I mean, the funny thing is, I used to work for a living, and we have a canteen, and people put too much salt in food, way too much. And when you do the home cooking, and you kind of reduce the salt, and you kind of get the flavor of the vegetables rather than this overpowering salt taste, and then you go down. I mean, especially in the work canteen where the cook or whatever, I think maybe the pot fell off. The lid fell off the salt pot or something. It's disgusting. It's really bad. It's really terrible.
Going back to like when you were younger, when you were going vegetarian and vegan, you know how now whenever you think about getting muscular, people think about needing protein and then needing meat. So was there a big emphasis about you need meat to build muscle?
It's a good question because, we can talk about it back then. It's like talking about the Middle Ages. If you're talking to me, I'm an old guy, so I'm talking about something which is really completely irrelevant today. I can tell you all about it. There was a couple of things which went on. We had the health food store, and I would go into the health food store. It was like, wow, yeah, great. I'm going to buy some healthy food. It was empty. There was nobody there because nobody was interested, apart from a few really old people. And they looked so old and as if they were about to die. And I realized the only people who went into the health food stores was people who had just been given a terminal diagnosis from their doctor. They've been told, look, you should be eating healthy, but they're like 80 years old, running down to the health food store. It's a little bit late. So it's a pretty depressing place, the health food store, and that was, I'm talking 40 years ago. The protein business, there was no kind of knowledge of it really back then. So people who were muscle-bound people would eat a lot of these powders, thinking that you had to have a lot of protein. And of course, back then, a lot of people were vegetarian, so they would eat eggs. And the muscle people, what they do is eat egg whites, because the egg yolk was linked with high cholesterol, so they would eat a lot of egg white. That was all. That's all those crazy muscle people would do that.
And
back in the day, I've got no idea what non-vegetarian people did, but the vegetarian people would eat egg whites because they would still eat eggs, because that was, considered. Still considered okay back in those days. Free-range eggs. They thought, well, that's free. They're roaming free, and why not? That's all good. So yeah, and I think there wasn't as much interest in being muscle bound in those days either. It wasn't the same interest as there is today. People like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Mr. Universe, all that, it was a small percentage of people. It was like really a minority. And even Arnold Schwarzenegger, I think he was in Austria and he won the big prize. His prize money wasn't that great. All it was enough money he came, I think, to California, and he invested in real estate. And that's how he made his first millions, not in the cinema, but actually investing the money he got from Mr. Universe before Conan the Barbarian. But there wasn't that much money in the whole thing as there is today. I mean, it's much more diverse today as well. So it's a whole different thing. And of course, today with the scientific knowledge, the big difference, the big game changer is all the top athletes who have got who are smashing the records. I think the first guy who did the 4 minute, can't remember his name now, who did the 4 minute mile, the 100 meters, the guy who did the 100 meters before Usain Bolt.
Oh.
I can't remember his name, it's gone out of my head. He was vegetarian, fastest guy in the world. And there was starting to get more and more people who were on a vegetarian diet who were not just able to compete with the top athletes, but were number one. I mean, in tennis, you have the two sisters whose names I've forgotten as well. One sister was diagnosed with a health issue, so she became vegetarian. And the other sister, out of solidarity, I think they're twins, said, "Oh, I'll become vegetarian as well." And they became the top tennis players. And nowadays, of course, and not only in sport in general, but it's in bodybuilding.
Oh, are you talking about Serena and Venus Williams?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's right. So the other thing you need to look at, if you want to say, well, I want to be big and have big strig and strong and have big muscles, there's another precedent you can look at, which is go and look at gorillas. Look at elephants. Look at all these the big, strongest animals. They eat just vegetables all day, and also it just makes more logical sense, because the thing about protein is it's difficult to digest. Most meat eaters have 2 kilograms of undigested meat or rotting meat in their body at any time, as it goes through, because it goes through very slowly the digestional tract, because it takes a long time to digest. And it has to be broken down into the essential amino acids, which are used for making protein, which is then it's like Lego bricks. It gets broken down into the basic amino acids, which then get built back up again to form muscle onto your body. So people think, oh, if I eat muscle, I will get muscle. But in fact, no, it doesn't work that way. What you want to eat is the Lego bricks, not the muscle, because they're digested so much easier. You use less energy in digesting them. And it's just generally makes a lot more sense. If you want to build muscle, don't eat muscle, eat Lego bricks. If you go to Uganda, you go to the jungle and you will see gorillas. Those gorillas eat only vegetables.
It's because the vegetables and everything has the proteins and building blocks in it.
That's right. All elephants, they eat bananas. They don't eat meat ever because they don't need it, and it's much more efficient. So if you are a bodybuilder and you want to build muscle, the first thing to learn is whatever you do, don't eat muscle, eat Lego bricks. It makes more sense to me. And the other thing for sports people is the concentration. So other sports which require concentration now as well, they're realizing they switch to a plant-based diet and they don't have this overhead in their body of having to digest all this indigested, putrefying meat. They can think more clearly as well.
When you switched over to being vegetarian or vegan, like it wasn't as difficult for you, right? Because you didn't have a huge emphasis on meat to begin with back in the day. So how much of a struggle was it for you to just switch over to being vegan?
The most difficult thing was shoes, because I had plastic shoes.
So you're talking about not just food, but your clothing, everything.
The most difficult thing for me was shoes, because I had to go to work. I had plastic shoes. They looked ridiculous, and they totally didn't breathe, and they weren't pliable, and they killed your feet dead. That was the most difficult thing. And then I was in the UK. A company in Brighton called Vegetarian Shoes was created, and they saved my life, and I love them to this day, and I promote them on my website, and I always will only buy my shoes from this company. What
do they make their shoes from?
I have no idea, and I do know it's not cows.
Oh, so it's like business casual shoes?
They've got all sorts. They've got what is very good is they've got trainers, they've got walking shoes, they've got boots. In fact, at the time they did a lot of Dr. Martens. Have you heard of, is that Dr. Martens? Is that something you have in Canada?
I've heard of Doc Martens.
They were a little bit of a fashion statement in when I was younger, and you get the soles. I think they're German, you get the soles, you do massive big soles, and then they're like big bother boots. They're really big and bright and colourful. So like when the punk age came out, people would love so the fact that we could, as the vegans, have some of these big, bright bother boots, the Doc Martens of the day. People don't wear them anymore, but at the time that's what they did. They specialised in Doc Martens, and they also did things like Birkenstock. So again, which is German, and it's sandals. And all they do is they get the actual base, which is made of cork or something, from the original manufacturer, and they simply put their own non-leather thing on top. So basically, it's very easy to get all the type of shoes. All of a sudden, it went from being extremely difficult to being extremely simple.
Since you were vegan for so long, right? So over the years, how have you seen the industry change? The biggest changes?
The first thing, 40 years ago, soya milk tasted disgusting. Soya yogurt, unedible. Sorry, unedible is the word. It was just because they didn't master the process of doing it, of converting it and making it taste good. So that was a real big challenge, was the whole soya thing. And there was nothing else available. It was soya or nothing.
What about tofu?
Tofu was available in Chinese restaurants and Chinese stores. That's been around forever. You go to countries like Vietnam and tofu is just a normal part of their diet. So you could find it if you're in a Chinese community, but it wasn't mainstream in those days back in the 40s. Back at 40 years ago. So I'd say that one of the first things was like the milks. So I'd say I've been 45 years. I would say nothing changed for 40 years, about 45 years. Pretty much nothing's changed. And then really the other thing which changed, was this when vegetarian became mainstream. And what that did is it killed the vegetarian restaurants. Now, I was in London at the time, and there were two excellent restaurants. One was called Cranks, because we were considered as cranks. So they thought, well, let's just name our restaurant that. And then the other one was called Food for Thought, and that was my favorite, most happy place I would ever go to. I just loved going to that restaurant. And they were very popular with this very small community of vegetarians which existed at the time. But as it became more popular, other restaurants started saying, hey, we've got a vegetarian option now. And these restaurants then lost their customers and shut down and went out of business. It was like the irony is that when it became popular, they went out of business. And so that was like a phase when, if you like, there wasn't enough vegetarians for these to exist. But then the next phase, when they grew a bit more, then there was enough vegetarians then to sustain a specific vegetarian market, and then some more came in. So now in London, places like Mildred's have come and kind of taken the vacuum. And in fact, now there's hundreds of restaurants. It's not a problem at all. But that, funnily enough, was the irony that, which for me, because I really dearly loved these two places. They were my churches. They were the happiest memories of my life was in these two places. And of course, the other funny thing which happened is that they were linked as well with eating well. So they eat whole food, whole grain rice. It was really cranky, if you like. So Cranks was really well named because it was like completely different to everything else. So you really became, it was a few people who did it, but then you went back the whole way. It wasn't like today where people are saying, "Oh, I'll do it, but I'll eat junk food."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay. Well, you're not killing animals, so it's good.
Mm-hmm.
But back in the day, the difference was, it was much more health conscious as well. It was linked to good health. So yeah, I've been living in Paris for the last 22 years, and until about 4 years ago, there were 0 vegan restaurants. We went from 0 to 50 in 2 years. The whole movement just exploded, and a lot of the restaurants were Chinese or Vietnamese restaurants who effectively were not interested in vegan cause or animals or anything. They just saw because there's so many Chinese restaurants that they're everywhere. They said, if we just change to a vegetarian or vegan menu, people will search us out. And I was speaking with the owners, and they're saying, yeah, we went from having a few customers to being overflown. So it was just a commercial choice for many of the restaurants. So you had a lot of the restaurants which converted over for commercial reasons, and then you did have a lot of young entrepreneurial types who said, yeah, I want to create my restaurant. And so you had a lot of good ones which came in, and there's a lot of very good restaurants in Paris now.
Well, you've seen all these restaurants popping up. Like, how do you feel about it? Like, have you been able to connect with the vegan community more in your area?
Well, one good thing is I've got my own marketing business now. Mm-hmm. And in Paris, we have an entrepreneurial group which meets once a month. So I get to meet a lot of these restaurant owners, not only the restaurant owners, but also some of these business ideas, mm-hmm. Which have come and gone. So we now do business mentoring, because I've seen a lot of these businesses come and I've seen them go. And especially the first wave, when there wasn't really enough interest in veganism, so they kind of came, but the timing wasn't quite right. So now a lot of these companies who are starting, it's like the 4th or 5th incarnation of these things. And now the timing is good. So, It just needs a few simple things to get right in your marketing strategy that you can do for nothing. And just to get the message out there, that's what you need. And there's no reason now why the business won't succeed. So yeah, I see a lot of not only, and of course now that I've started my business, I see them worldwide. So I'm speaking with people every day. We do basically 2 things. We do the listing. We list animal sanctuaries and wildlife conservation projects. We're very involved with youth movements for climate action, and those as well have just sprung up in the last couple of years, especially in places like Africa, where we're really involved a lot. So that's all the kind of non-profits, the NGOs. That's probably 80% of. It was about 80% of our time. We get paid nothing for that. We do all that for free and for fun, basically. And then we have businesses, who have been mostly startups. So they're kind of penetrating a new market or creating a new market. So we're working, for example, with a vegan vending company called VegMe LLC, which is setting up in Mexico. That's one example. There's a new delivery service in Paris called Etic, which is ethical eating. So we're now seeing, so we're going from the startups to also, because companies who have been running now for 2 or 3 years, for example, in France, they've really conquered the French market, let's say, and they're starting to say, well, we've got the idea, we've got the product, we've got the website and everything. Let's do another country. Let's go to Canada. And in fact, funnily enough, we're working with a vegan supplement, vitamin supplement company. Mm-hmm. They're available in all the, is it pharmacy, you say, in mm-hmm. Canada? Pharmacy. So you can get them over the counter, and very successful. So they said, okay, we'll expand to Canada, Italy, Germany. And so we get involved with that. Now, because we have this network, because we do the travel, we have now a 50,000 network of people, contacts. We have contacts for every country in the world, because we always work with local people. So that same network we're using to find our marketing people as well. So what we now say is we are experts in exports. We can help people make that transition from a local business, which is where everyone starts. You start off in your own town, or in fact with your own family usually, and then in your own town, and then your own country. And then the next big step is to say, right, let's go global, or at least to expand out. And that way you might need some funding. You might need, the translating of your websites. You might need to know about the laws in the different countries. So in particular, the vitamin company, we had to wait 6 months for approval because it's a food product. Mm-hmm. Obviously dangerous. In Canada, in Canada it was a 6-month process. Mm-hmm. There's lots of papers to fill out. It's not as simple as all that, which is obviously why we're here. If it was simple, people would do it themselves. And of course, in different countries, then we went to Italy as well. And mm-hmm. Not only is the law different in each country, but they speak Italian, funnily enough, in Italy. And so, in fact, it does help a lot, even with our travel. For example, in Germany, we did. I saw a study which said 60% of Germans, and Germans all speak fluent English. They learn it in school as a second language, but they're still far more comfortable to deal with a German-speaking company, mm-hmm. Which is why also now we're expanding out our core team to have a person in each country. We're now working with ambassadors and local agents mm-hmm. Who can speak the language, and they know the local spots, the local businesses, the local mm-hmm. Laws and things like this. So, yeah.
That is so exciting. So that's actually kind of transitioned into, so this is your nonprofit, right? Vegan on the Map.
Yeah. We don't make any profit at all. In fact, the whole thing of, again, it's down to this kind of brainwashing mm-hmm. that you have to make a profit because that's what you're supposed to do, and have a big car and a big house and all this type of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I've got the advantage. I got a lot of, I was working in a business which paid very well before. Mm-hmm. So I've got a little bit of a buffer. But when you're starting your own startup, and I always ask people, what is, you want to be successful. Everyone says the same thing. Obviously you do. But the question is, what is success? The first thing any business should do is define for them what success is. And, we just say, well, success for us, for my mind, is just having a sustainable, caring, kind lifestyle whereby I don't need to worry so much about them. I mean, the money, to my mind, is just becomes almost irrelevant. Mm-hmm. It's only relevant in the sense that we have to, if you want someone to work for you, you have to pay them, obviously. Or else they won't come back very often, It's not sustainable. You can have the best will in the world and say, I want to help the animals and I want to create a sanctuary but to care for them all, or I want to create a business which will revolutionize fashion or travel or whatever. Unless you've got the cash flowing, so you have, I'm not saying don't look at cash, but I'm saying don't let it be your driver in terms of what success is. You need the cash to be flowing so that you will stay in business. But when you measure what success is, think of other things. Like, for example, and I think it's not just on a business level, it's at a country level as well. So, for example, in Bhutan, it's a little tiny country, next to Nepal, just above India. They have instead of having a GDP, the gross domestic profit, as some type of indicator that you're doing well, they have a national happiness index. I mean, it just makes so much sense. How happy are the people in your society? Think of it. I mean, in Canada, everyone is happy. I love Canada. They're just such beautiful, friendly people. But then you go over to America, and I love America as well. And they are, again, amazingly friendly, beautiful people, but they're all brainwashed. All completely brainwashed. And it's like, oh, you're in a cult. It's like a cult of 300 million people. Oh, it's scary. And I say to these people, don't look at the the Dow Jones. Who cares? The question is your population? Look at things like you've got the largest incarceration rates in the world. You've got a third of the population living in some sort of excluded way. It just doesn't make economic sense as much as anything else. When you start marginalizing a whole section of society, how does that make economical sense? It's madness. So this is the type of thing you can use to measure success, is to say, okay, then we've now got a healthcare system so that you don't have to worry about when you do fall ill, will you be able to pay for a treatment? Now, the whole stress of that, of worrying, and because it's not a case of if you're going to get a treatment or not, you probably save up, you're going to get a treatment. It's all the worrying of it. So it just makes so much sense to have a national health system which protects. Mm-hmm. Having all these homeless people, how does that make economic sense? It just doesn't. It applies at different levels. It applies at a national level, it applies at a business level, and it applies at a personal level as well, each one. And I think, one of the things we're looking at is saying, look, we need to get to a point where things like a home to live in and food to eat is a human right. That should just not be a question. So, as I was saying, we're working with Food for Life Global. We give free meals to kids who are in desperate situations. Mm-hmm. That's one of the big projects we're involved in. We promote that a lot. It's one of my favorite projects. It's worldwide, it's global. I recommend you jump onto their website and look at they have a map. They have dozens of projects or hundreds of projects around the world. And there's absolutely nothing to stop you creating your own project as well in your family, in your street, in your town, in your country. Lots of people can do this. I mean, I've spoken to so many people because the other thing we do is we create websites for nonprofits for free. I made someone cry the other day because because normally a website, to create a website costs around about, anything from $500 to $2,000. Mm-hmm. And what we say is we give free website creation with unlimited pages, 30 gigabytes of online storage, 5 email addresses, unlimited pages, free maintenance, free renewal costs, free training. You have total independence. The annual renewal is free as well. And the only thing, what we expect back in return is nothing. So I said that to someone, and I said, if I could give you all that and it was cost you nothing and it was free, and the girl just started crying. She was setting up a non-profit for women and children who are victims of domestic violence. Mm-hmm. So the other thing she was telling me was, one of the big things in that business is having something to do. Because you can set up a refuge and people will come and, flee a dangerous situation and they'll come to the refuge, but then they're sat there all day long with nothing to do. So we said, well, okay, because she actually was fleeing to a seaside town. And funnily enough, I'd been speaking to another guy who does the plastic beach clear-ups. There's another company we're working with called Green Socks. Mm-hmm. And again, it was one of these spontaneous things he just set up. He kind of made a call out saying, look, I've got this beach here. There's plastic all over it. Let's just go out and clean it up. And he got hundreds of people interested. So now he came to me saying, look, I want to make this bigger. There were, as I said, we tend to come in when it's the next step to step it up. So we said, well, I can put you in touch with this other girl who's got this other project, and she's giving some people to do, and a project like that, it brings people together. So there's loads and loads of these community type projects, and there's no reason why the website and all this shouldn't be free. And so we done quite a bit of that.
That is so inspirational. It's very noble that you're doing it as a nonprofit. So,
well, it's very rewarding, and as I said, for us, we are making some money, enough money to pay for our travels. That's all we need to do, really.
And you're right that success doesn't have to be measured by money. It's very, very right what you were saying earlier. How did you get all this business knowledge? What did you study in school? What were you working in before this?
My background is a little bit mixed. I did computing at school. I learned about computers. Again, I did it 40 years ago when they hadn't even been invented yet. I started off before the PC. I remember when I was about 18 or 19 when the IBM PC was invented and was created. Just to let you know.
Then and there, they started opening up degrees for computing.
Yes, they did. Yeah, okay. And in fact, Apple II. If you ever watch a film, a historic film telling you all about the Middle Ages when they used to have these things, like Steve Jobs when he started his company, he created the first company. The first computer he ever created was called an Apple II, and that's the first computer I worked on. So basically, I'm an old guy. We've established that. So the first job I did then was I went to work in high energy physics, and I worked at CERN, which was I basically was there as well when we discovered quarks. In fact, I just arrived 2 years after they discovered quarks. So quarks, strangeness, and charm, the subatomic particles. Yeah. So I worked at, that's where I started off. My first job was working at CERN, which is the laboratory in Switzerland, in Geneva, which was super interesting. But as a career, it's quite difficult. So the next job I did a little bit of, I worked for a legal firm. Then I worked for a national children's home. I worked for an orphanage for a few years, which they renamed now. They're called Action for Children. They're one of the biggest charities in the UK. So that was quite interesting. That made me realise that these charities are a business. And in fact, a lot of the donations, a lot of the money you give them, 30 to 40% of that money goes back into just asking for more money. It's just self-promotion. And so again, that's one of the drivers in what I'm doing now, is to say, look, I don't want to have a business where you give me money so that I can then pay people to ask for more money. So that's one thing we don't do at all. We don't accept donations, and if anybody wants to give us money, we tell them where they can give it to particular projects we know where it will be directly 100% used for a project, not for campaigning. And that's the other thing we don't do. We're not angry vegans, because that's the other thing. You're asking me about the differences. What happened? What are the big milestones? As I said, 40 years ago, we were just off the radar completely. No one gave a damn or even understood who we were. And then suddenly you've got this new generation of what I call the angry vegans. And I'm not interested. I am not interested at all. I am just so happy that the movement has finally caught off. I'm the opposite of angry. I'm just delighted that anybody would make a move towards the plant-based or take us seriously or recognize it as a problem. So I don't want to spend my days berating other people because they're not vegan enough. People say, "Oh but you eat honey or something, or you do this wrong or that wrong." And no, don't argue amongst yourselves. This is ridiculous. In your bubble, and don't waste your time because this idea that you have to campaign and explain to people now why animal factory farming is bad. People know. They just choose to put the blind, to not see, because of the brainwashing, because of the conditioning, because they've always been told. So it's anchored in their brain that this is normal. So it's a very difficult spell to break. But it's not because of lack of knowledge. People know deep down that this is wrong, but they just don't want to accept it. So why waste time? All this being angry and shouting and saying you're all wrong and bad and horrible. We are all about creating new stuff. Be creative. Create alternatives. It's like in the school playground. When you see kids on the other side and they're all laughing and having fun, and you kind of think you're kind of drawn towards them, thinking, what are they so happy about? What's going on over there? And then you say, yeah, come over, look, have a taste of this food. It's so delicious. Oh, by the way, look at us. We're so happy and healthy. And we're doing all this stuff, and we've got all these things, and we're happy people. We're not these, and it's counterproductive to be these angry vegans. And the other thing is people misunderstand is violence. Being aggressive is violence. And what you're saying is we are against violence to animals. And so we are going to be violent to you, which is like you're missing the point. You've totally missed it. The veganism now is just a detail. It's a detail. We've moved on past that. It's like we're not going to debate the veganism anymore. It's a much wider issue. We've got a climate crisis. We've got diversity issues. We've got extreme poverty. What our aim is a new era of world peace. This is our aim, nothing less. Veganism is a mere detail. In 50 years' time, 100 years' time, we will look back on this period like we look back on slavery now, like we look back on the Dark Ages and say, oh my gosh, the 20th century was such a barbaric time. Luckily, we've pushed past that and moved past it. We've learned to live in harmony in a community, to reach out to other cultures and understand them and to be happy within ourselves. These are the big issues we really need to be addressing. Of course, not eating animals you're not going to do that because it just doesn't make any sense in the big global picture.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So with Vegan on the Map, you have a network of people around the world. You help them grow and expand their business, right? And how does that come into the picture?
There's a couple of reasons. One is because travel is life transforming. It certainly changed my life in a big way. 40 years ago, when I went to Vietnam for the first time, which was not long after the war and the country was reconstructing, everyone was riding bicycles. There were very few motorized vehicles. A lot of the people were in trauma, and the people I met and spoke to were in clear trauma. But they were so happy as well. That was just the amazing thing. People with nothing who had these massive smiles and just so happy to see you and just so welcoming. It just transforms you. And you think, well, I've been transformed now. I don't need to go traveling anymore. But last year, we were in China. We did a temple stay, and we were chanting with the monks at 5 a.m. And we were speaking with the head monk, and he was giving us the whole philosophy of how they live in the monastery and all this sort of stuff. The oldest monk was 117. And also just with the people, we were in Sichuan, which is, because the thing about China as well is you can't lump it all together and say, oh yeah, I've been to one. It's like saying Europe or South America. China is a massive set of regional aspects. So we were in, but what I'm saying is the people were so gentle and so welcoming and so friendly. You think, wow, and again, it's another thing. Do not be hypnotized by the media and the propaganda and the whole sort of thing you're told. Go and meet these people. Go and experience their cultures. The other place where we got the best feedback is Iran. The Iranian people, I'm not talking about the government, I'm talking about the people. The culinary workshops we did were amazing. The Persian cuisine is really superb. But the people were also friendly, and this is what I find over and over again. So that's why I love travel. What I say to people in America in particular, it's improved an awful lot now in America. But I say, get a passport, number one. Number two, use it. Get out and see the world, and stop thinking in your bubble that you are the greatest in the world and all this type of nonsense. you're just different to the rest of the world. In fact, you don't have to go very far. I remember going between Seattle and Vancouver. It was like a 2-hour drive. And in Vancouver, at the traffic lights, everyone stops and lets the other car in front. Everyone's like overly polite and friendly. A 2-hour drive, you're in Seattle, and they won't let you off the highway because you can't change lanes because people are so aggressive. So when we started this business 4 years ago, we started because I wanted to go traveling myself. And I'm thinking, well, there aren't any real options apart from these super expensive options, which, is very nice if you've got a lot of money or if you're only going once a year. But I'm thinking, I want to go myself, meet more people. I have a certain type of idea, so I want to create my own company. We started off being a listings company. So we basically work with all the other travel agents, and their tours are on our website. But about a year ago, I had a new idea. I said, look, what do I want to do myself? And also with the climate action and, so many things going on, I said, I want to do slow travel, take more, the cultural immersion, spending more time, not in the 5-star hotels. Because the other thing people do is they get on an airplane, they fly to the other end of the world, they spend 2 weeks in a 5-star hotel by the swimming pool. They could be anywhere in the world because all these hotels resemble each other. Because it's a little bit warmer, they're thinking, okay, I'm escaping the Toronto blizzard. But no, that has to stop. Then they fly all the way back. So what I want to do was 2 things. Well, the other thing was also to reach the younger demographic as well, because all our people coming with us were kind of a little bit wealthier because they had their own business and they were well established. But all these 18 to 35s, I wanted to attack that market, and they're quite a different market, as I was explaining a little bit earlier. A lot of them have they've grown up with social media, they have their own business or side hustle, or their activism, or whatever it is, or they're doing it for fun. So we're saying, the whole digital nomad entrepreneurial thing is what we wanted to attack. And we launched the idea, and we got like 10 times more response. The idea exploded, and that was just before COVID hit. So the timing was, not the best. So that is the motivational thing for the business camp that we've launched.
Now that you got a hold of the market, like what did you intend to do? Reach out to them and like hold these camps in different places around the world?
Yeah, well, initially we started off in Thailand. We were doing Southeast Asia because we know that very well.
This will be the first one.
Effectively, it will be the first one because we've done it for ourselves in the past. Like when we were in China, we're very familiar with that type of thing, and we have all the networks and everything, and we've done the travels ourselves. Yeah. But this is the first time we set this business camp idea up, and it has kind of evolved as we've got the feedback from people. So COVID hit, and we basically pushed all the plans back by a year. Mm-hmm. So now we should have been in Thailand last year, but now we'll be there in October. That's given us a year to expand the project out. Mm-hmm. And we've expanded it in 2 ways. One is to add all the marketing tools that we've developed. So basically what we're saying to people is come with us, but also we will handhold you and be business mentors. So if you've got your little startup project and you say, I'm selling my t-shirts, or I'm doing coaching, or I'm a chef, or whatever it is, but I'm not really making enough money. I've got 1,000 followers on my social media. We're saying, look, jump on board. We will guarantee you 1,000 followers per month. By the time you get to Thailand, you'll have 10,000 followers. You work in a pod, and also we will bring together a lot of skills. So we'll do the workshops. So we'll have culinary workshops, we'll have marketing workshops, we'll have photography workshops. All different people come with different skills. Now, initially, my idea was to think, okay, it would be like a conference, if you like. Mm-hmm. People come and they teach, and then people come and they learn. But what we found was everybody wants to teach. Everyone was the entrepreneur. Everybody was the business person. So it's much more an exchange of ideas where, one person is the podcaster, one person is the videographer. Put those together, and we've got a TV show. The other thing which has happened recently, we've been approached by one of the largest plant-based networks in the world to come and produce a vegan TV travel show. that is the project we're working on at the moment, and that is a massive project. That is, so complex. Then what we want to do is bring in as many people, video expertise within their country, or that's the other aspects. And of course, what we started working with, of course, because we will have our own podcast studio in Thailand, is we've reached out to a lot of podcasters, and we've got 5 or 6 coming already. We've got the TV crew coming as well. So it's all really coming together really nicely, and we've got sports people coming, because we're doing a lot of physical activity like trekking, cycling, scuba diving, or everything.
When you're working with this TV channel, Thailand's kind of going to be the first couple episodes season, or they're going to use all that footage, and then whenever you keep traveling, they'll be building up that TV show.
Yeah, that's the idea. I mean, it could be that China, because we've got all the footage from China, from a year ago. And the funny thing is, the TV show takes so much time, and for editing and getting music and the narration, and we just don't have the time at the moment. So we've got all that footage on the floor or on our hard disk. So it's a case of finding a format. What we want to do is maybe have a 5-minute format, where we do a minute about how is it to be vegan in this country, what the restaurants like, what's the animal situation, there's some sanctuaries, what animals can you go and see, and then switch to sort of 3 or 4 different topics and do it in a condensed kind of format. So it's going to be maybe 5 or 10 minutes, but assemble lots of different clips, and then at the end give full credit to everyone who's participated, so that we can say, for example, we're showing you the turtle sanctuary here, and you get maybe only a 10 or 20 second clip of it. But then the link will say, go and see the 20-minute full version of this at this address here. So we've got lots of ideas, but I mean, that's like a side project. To be honest, it's going to come together slowly. What exact format it is, we're kind of
don't, like, if the TV channel approaches you, they don't kind of give you like an editing crew. They don't have that in the background if they're the ones approaching you.
Well, no, the thing is, the way it works is that they're not coming to us with a lot of money saying, hey, we'll give you lots of money to do this. It would be too simple. What they're saying is, you do the show and we've got the sponsors. We've got our network whereby, a bit like YouTube, when you get the sponsors popping up saying, hey, they split the sponsor money with us for being as part of their network. I guess like podcasts is the same. No one pays you to do the podcast. You have to get sponsors. So
how did you reach out to all this younger generation? Like, was it just through your Instagram page?
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's grown slowly, the expertise that we've acquired. One is by building up a core team of experts, which has been very useful. So we have spoken with we've got marketing mentors now who are really good, and we've got a person who's an expert in exports. So that's helped a lot. It's having this core team of professional people. That's helped a hell of a lot. In the early days, we were just fumbling through like everybody else, all these other startups. So we've learned by, a baptism of fire. I went into this really not knowing anything. And 4 years later, we've made all the mistakes, and we're more in a position to say, look, let's just point out the obvious things that you're doing wrong, because it's so simple. So we just went over like 100K followers recently. Whether it's psychological or whether it's just timing, but everyone's approaching us totally differently. We get everything sort of taking off. We're starting to get invitations from 5-star luxury hotels and eco resorts saying, come and stay for free, if you promote us within your network. So this again is where we started to think, well, let's bring the people we know together, because when you work together, you grow faster, and you can offer a wider coverage to sponsors. So what we're saying to these hotels is, okay, well, maybe we can't go, but we know someone who does. We've built up our own marketing business. So that's basically where our thing came from. And we now offer, we also developed our own application, which helps a lot, where we do 2 things. We do automation, because it's so time consuming is the whole marketing, posting and engagement, because engagement is key. So we automate as much as can be automated. And then the second step is to do curated accounts, whereby we actually get people who will do the work for you. Now that then just frees you up to focus on your business, on what you know, or on in some people's cases, like their full-time job. A lot of people have got a full-time job, they're doing something as a thing, and then they're getting sucked into the social media side of it. What you need to do is say, look, I'm going to invest a little bit of cash so that I can just get rid of that side of things and know that I will be growing 1,000 followers a month. That's what you need to be aiming for.
That is a lot that your company is doing. And like, how many people are on your team?
I think there's 5 core people in our team, but then there's a lot who are kind of, I'm speaking with a lot of people who are like subsidiary, we've got a big network of people.
Wow.
We know people everywhere. Every country in the world, I have a network of hundreds of people.
And this was just you networking and building that over the years?
Me and my computer.
Wow.
Me and my bots.
How long is the Thailand trip for?
It's forever. What we say to people is come and don't go home. We will have a permanent base in Thailand. The trip itself is 3 years. And when I say 3 years, what I mean is it's 10 years. But we have the first 3 years already organized. Okay, and then we'll probably cycle through, we'll loop through. But we say come for any parts of it. So it's like a hop on, hop off. So if you want to come to Thailand for a month and then go back to work for a bit, and then next we'll be in Japan, a few months later, you can then circle around and meet up again. The other thing we'll be doing is we've got this idea of a facilitator. Yeah, to answer your question, how long can the people come for? There's a visa issue. So in Thailand, you get a tourist visa, which lasts for 2 to 3 months. But what we're doing is saying, hey, after a couple of months, we you do a visa run, you go back and you go out and come back. Or you say, well, you get on the bus, and the next country along is Laos, which is a whole different atmosphere. It's like going back in time. It's like 30 years ago, like Thailand was. So far less tourism. It's totally different. So let's go to Laos. Yeah. And then you spend a bit of time there. Then we're getting back on the bus, on a bus, or cycling, or whatever you want to do. Then from Vietnam, we're going to Taiwan. Then from Taiwan, we're going to Japan. We'll be in Japan in time for the cherry blossom in spring 2022. So then I'm going to Australia. We've got another tour in Africa. Now, I can't split myself in two. So we want the idea of a facilitator, someone else who's going to come on board and be the organizer and the leader of the tour. So if that's something people are interested in, jump on board and get paid for traveling the world. Now, most people don't say no to that. There's a guaranteed route, which is what I will be doing. And also we've already got people on board. Like, for example, our Iceland trip this summer is run by Seika and Brian, who are a couple of really fun influencers who are from California. They're now living near Portland, and they've already done a big world tour, visiting 21 countries. They know all the restaurant owners in Iceland because they've already done the tour. Yeah. So they're doing our Iceland tour. We have a couple of Italian influencers who are doing our Bali tour. As it mushrooms out, we'll have options in lots of places. The other thing, because you mentioned that, we started in Thailand. I was about to tell you about the whole business camp. What we've expanded it to is having a business camp on every continent. So over the 3 years, we're visiting 6 continents, including Antarctica. That is going to be the big one, the big highlight, where we're going to jump on a boat and go down just south. In fact, we're going to be in Argentina. We're going to go from the north all the way down to the south of Argentina and just keep on going. And then we're going to get all the way to the South Pole. Well, no, I'm exaggerating. Not the South Pole, but to Antarctica. This is the way it works, is we have a base of the business camp. So Thailand is our base. We will have a permanent base there. We will be living in Thailand and have our company there. And when people come on board, they say, depending on where people want to go, if some people say, hey, you know what, I'd like to do a tour in China or in Myanmar, we say, okay, as soon as we've got enough people, we're going to do more of a tour, more of the classic, let's go pop and see all the places and then come back, and maybe do that for a week or 2 weeks and then come back to the base camp. So the base camp is like a home away from home. So we have our own kitchen, we have our own garden, we have our own space for the yoga and sport and things like this. We have our own bicycles and all the things you need. And of course we have internet and the SIM cards and all this. So that way you can catch up with your business side and post a few things, get together all the footage, all the videos you've taken, and you do that for a couple of weeks maybe, and then you say, you know what, we're itching again. Well, let's get off again, and we'll go to Vietnam this time. In South America, we're going to be based in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, and also in Brazil is the big one. But we've also got projects in Peru, in Chile. In Central America, again, we're based in Puerto Rico, but we have Panama, Costa Rica, all these type of places. British Virgin Islands, Catamaran. In Africa, our business camp is in Cape Town, because it's a little bit cooler down there. It's a very vegan vibe, very much the European vibe. Lots of vegan restaurants. It's really established. Whereas in some of the other African countries, it's a bit more expensive, and they don't know what vegan means. They're like, what? What? So they're the countries we'll be hopping around in, and our base will be in Cape Town and Johannesburg as well, which is more of the. We're going to Ghana. Ghana will be amazing. We have a really good project there. Tanzania, Madagascar, Australia and New Zealand is on our routes. We're going everywhere, and we're coming to Toronto.
So Toronto will be, like you said, the business camp. Will that be the base here?
Yeah, Toronto is going to be our base. And Halifax, I think, is the other town we're going to go to.
Well, when people want to sign up, how do they do that?
Sign up, they just come and send me an email, or can register on the website. The website is veganonthemap.com. We also have a dedicated website for every country we visit. So we've already created over 100 websites.
So what do those websites have for each country?
For each country, they have an introduction about how it is to be vegan in that country, some restaurants and things like this. Then they have some animal links, maybe some sanctuaries and wildlife conservation projects. They have the meetups, the vegan associations that you need to be talking with if you're going to those countries, because those will give you the links that you need. So rather than us trying to keep up to date links for the whole world, what we're much more about is giving you the vital links to the associations you need to be contacting to get the maps and the listings and that type of thing. So we also have a list of top sites from a more of a touristic point of view. What should you be going to see? In India, you should be going to see the Taj Mahal and that type of thing, but also the animals. So for example, in Iceland, we're going to track down the Arctic foxes. In obviously Africa, we do the vegan safari, which is amazing. In Thailand, we have an association with Never Forget Elephant Sanctuary. We have a listing of the top elephant sanctuaries, and we work with this top one, which is the very best one. They have rejuvenated the small village. What they did is they went to this village, and the village said to them, look, we will give you this land for free if you can develop it and bring in the tourists. And so they've done that. They've got this really successful elephant sanctuary, but now they've also got a school kids thing as well. So they're teaching school kids. The other thing we say is, on the business camp, you're free to do all your own thing. So it's not like one of these things where you hop off the bus and you take a picture and you hop back on the bus. That is not what we're doing. It's like you come and go as you please. If you want to go off and do your own thing, or if you want to take part in the workshops, or if you just want to work on your business. If enough people say, oh, we're all off to the elephant sanctuary next week. Personally, I'm going to be teaching school kids in Laos. I love kids. Also, the other thing, anybody with kids are most welcome. They are the most welcome people. I really love to work on online schooling, accredited, schooling. Something like that is another project on the back of my mind, which I might get to do in a year's time. But kids should see the world as well. It's such, it's just opens kids' eyes. They suddenly see, oh yeah, now I know why I should be learning this foreign language. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, real people really speak it.
How is COVID going to affect it? Like, what if the Thailand plan, do you think it would have to be moved again, or?
It's possible.
October?
Possible. What we're doing is keeping very flexible at this stage. Now, the funny thing is, I speak to people in California or wherever who say to me, oh, you know what, we're so scared about COVID and we don't want to travel. And I'm saying, look, you know what, we're off to Taiwan. Now, do you know how many deaths there were in Taiwan in the first wave? 7. Do you know how many deaths there were in the second wave? 0. There was no second wave. Southeast Asia is, if you're just looking at COVID, and people are kind of, obviously for obvious reasons, they're fixed on the COVID. But what we're saying to people is, as soon as you are able to plan your escape, obviously California is the coolest, hippest, the whole West Coast, and also the whole East Coast. In fact, funnily enough, a lot of the bits in the middle as well are super turned on to the whole vegan climate action movement. But in particular, I think California, because of the fires. So between the fires and the COVID, a lot of people are saying, look, we're just planning our escape. As soon as we can leave, we're out of here, especially after a year of confinement. So people who tell me, oh yeah, it's too dangerous, saying, look, you are in one of the most dangerous places in the world for COVID, and we are going to one of the safest places in the world. As soon as they allow you to go in, you shouldn't be saying, oh, keep me here, please. Yeah. You should be saying, oh, please let me get out to this. The other thing is we have our own place, so we have our own villa. Mm-hmm. So it's not passing through hotels. We have our own place, so it's way safer.
And then what is the deadline for people who do want to sign up?
If you're traveling far, you have to think of the flights. You really want to be getting your flight kind of like 5-6 months beforehand. Also for ourselves, in terms of knowing exactly which size villa to reserve and this type of thing. We're looking at March, April time for the Thailand trip. Mm-hmm. To say, look, now's the time. So for now, we're saying, look, we're still keeping flexible. We haven't done our big mail shot yet. We're just saying, okay, let's see. But with the vaccine, and more importantly, with the testing, with the widespread testing, once you get the testing at the airports, you know that you're safe when you travel, mm-hmm. and also the countries will let you in. That's the key thing. It's not getting out; it's getting in. I'm in Paris, and we're also in the Naughty Club as well. Oh, yeah. Nobody wants anybody in the UK and Europe and America and South America as well. Brazil has not done particularly well. Mm-hmm. Asia, they were more prepared because of the previous SARS and things like this. So we were in China when the pandemic started. But it was just a month before. We were there in September, November time, and we were going to go to Wuhan. And it was in our plans, but I just didn't have the time really. And what we ended up doing is we were in Sichuan, like Chengdu, mm-hmm. and then we went to Shanghai. And we were going to take the slow road, which kind of goes right through Wuhan. In the end, we just flew over. Now it's one of the safest places in the world. It's back, life as normal back in and I have a lot of friends, obviously, in China, mm-hmm. and I'm on WeChat with them, and they're saying, for months now, we've not had a single case. UK, where I'm from, is the worst number one in the world. We have per 100,000 deaths, we're around about 100. For the time being, we're really looking closely and thinking we're not, the safety is the number one issue. We are looking very heavily at the safety issue on many fronts, targeting countries which are going to be safe, mm-hmm. but also, funnily enough, there are some countries which depend on tourism. The elephant sanctuary, where we work with, the elephants are going hungry now. There's the risk they may have to be resold back into the logging trade. And in Africa as well, poaching is on the increase. Ecotourism is what pays for the rangers and the upkeep of all this stuff. It doesn't happen for free. So the tourism industry, it is a vital part for many reasons. Obviously, we are focusing on slow travel where you travel less often, you travel overland, but you can't just say, oh no, we're just going to abandon all these countries. We're just going to abandon all these animals. In particular, elephants is one of my favorite animals. They're very, very intelligent, very beautiful animals. They're at risk of extinction. I mean, can you believe that? And there are currently 50,000 in the world. And what really brought it home to me is, there's a project to go to interstellar space, to do a space project where we travel to the next cosmos to live there. If we set off, we have to be at least 10,000 people setting off because of, inbreeding. For a species to be sustainable long term, you have to have at least 10,000 people, or you have to freeze the eggs or do something or other. But for the elephants, we're down to 50,000. if there's some type of, disease which runs through, we're dangerously low. And then you have to contemplate the idea of explaining to your grandchildren. And again, I'm an old guy, so I understand what it is. I know that, when you're 20, you think you're indestructible and you will, old age will never arrive. But when you are imagining, explaining to your grandchildren how elephants used to exist and they don't exist anymore and they will never exist again after millions of years of evolution, this is one thing which just completely, baffles me, that people are not more up in arms about the danger of this. And of course, the other thing which mystifies me is on the media. People are talking about, oh yeah, we've got the vaccine now, we've got this COVID, it's really dangerous. Nobody is saying, hey, what caused it? Number one, animal agriculture. And number two, what is the real danger? It's not COVID. The real danger is what's coming next, the next virus. Because we're all agreed that the viruses will be coming more often. They're already coming with an increased frequency. And the next virus, which is as lethal as Ebola, but can be as transmitted like the common cold, kills 1 in 2 people. COVID is a wake-up call. The vaccine is the short-term thing you have to obviously do. But you also have to be speaking about climate action, animal agriculture. Another thing no one speaks about is population, saying let's stop increasing the population, because it's a subject nobody really wants to mention. It's a little bit sensitive. Though in China, they had their one-child policy, and people criticize it. But I'm thinking, thank goodness they had that, because otherwise we'd already be at 9 billion people instead of 8 billion people. 8 billion is already on the tipping point. These are the questions which, unfortunately, we're like in a war-type situation. This is the young generation, and it's encouraging to see so many which are jumping on these youth movements, and the sad old politicians who are just doing nothing. They're saying to themselves, "Look, I'll be dead in 10 years' time." Mm-hmm. I don't grasp the whole concept. When you're young, your brain is pliable. You can absorb information and adapt. And when you're old, you think, oh, you're this conditioning, this brainwashing which has gone on in your life. You said, no, it's normal. We've always done this. We'll always do it. It's not as dangerous as it appears. But it's like being on a bus without the brakes. We're in a juggernaut which is just out of control. And we're thinking, who the hell is at the helm of this vessel, out of control? And how the hell can we wrestle control back? And it's certainly not depending on the pilots, that's for sure. So we all have to think very carefully about what's true, what's not true, the fake news, the not fake news. Don't go down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, and there's a lot of nonsense talked out there as well. But don't believe everything and really work it all out, think about it, and act with your gut feeling and then your heart. What tells you, what seems right. Compassion is a big thing. Be compassionate. In fact, the head monk I mentioned before, he told, at the end of these 2-hour talk, he just said, okay, it just boils down to 2 things. Be happy and be compassionate. So compared to these angry vegans, being angry, no, that's not the way to go. Be happy. Be happy above all other things. Be happy in yourself, be smiling, be positive. And this is the first thing to do. It's like when the aircraft is going down, you put your own oxygen mask on first. You make sure you are happy. You make sure you're in good state so that you can then look after other people. Mm-hmm. You make sure you have your thoughts and your definition of success in place as it should be before you start talking to other people. And, they always say you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So you should always listen twice as much as you speak. And again, with the travel, the early travelers were the missionaries who would go out and say, hey, you know what, we're going to teach you all about this and that and change your culture and whatever. Whereas in fact, what we've now started to realize is some of these cultures in China and in India, some of these beliefs, 50 years later, we're saying, oh my gosh, or 100 years later, we're saying, you know what? Yeah, a lot of this is right. The Aboriginals in Australia, They said for a long time, you have your brain in your gut. You believe your gut, and now the scientists have actually discovered you have brain cells, the neurons. You have them in your gut, and there are also a few of these cells in your heart as well. And they've also kind of made astounding leaps in science in the last 10 years because of the technological, and sharing and communities and all this type of thing. But they're starting to join the dots together. And this simplistic view they had of things 50 years ago, they're now starting to say, oh my gosh, we just made so many mistakes. And if we'd gone and listened to some of these people, so what I'm saying is when you go to these countries, don't go with this idea that you're superior or have something to explain to people. Just go, watch people smiling and being happy and learn from that as much as anything. That's the biggest lesson you can take away from these places. Thailand is where it's all happening. That's the big one. The big one is Thailand. If everyone can get there, it's going to be awesome, but really, truly spectacular. If you can't get to Thailand, we're business mentors. We can get your little side project. Mm-hmm. And even if it is a little side project, and you're saying, oh, you know what, I'm just doing this for fun or whatever, it always helps to be heard. And for the animals, because the thing about the Coca-Cola, they've got multi-million-dollar budgets. That's why you asked me what I was doing. I used to work for M6 Television in France. There's a major channel in France. And so I know their budgets. The phenomenal amount of money that Coca-Cola. So what we've got is people. So we all, like raindrops, we come together to form in the ocean these big waves, which will knock everything over and big the changes. So when you say, yeah, I'm just doing this for fun or whatever it is, it does help to make these little small changes, which just mean you come together and you are getting the message out, not in an aggressive way, but in a subtle, nice, friendly way, just giving your snaps with you smiling, saying, hey, look, I'm down on the beach, I'm doing this lifestyle, I'm at the elephant sanctuary, and you know what? I discovered the animals, just having a connection with animals that so many people just don't get. And when you do, you think, oh my gosh, we've just sidestepped so much. So have fun, post about it, and it's important to regularly get this message out, and don't think that what you're doing is frivolous or trivial. Everyone come together. Right. Get in touch with me if you want to build it into activism or a business. That's what we do. We take those projects to the next level. I was happy to help. We've done a few of these things. Yeah. And it was really great to meet you. And I've got to jump. It's a little bit late here.
Yes, I forgot. You're 6 hours ahead too.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sounds good. Good night.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into today's episode, and we'll see you next time.